welcome to Promoted Podcast, the podcast that helps you get promoted and be great when you get there. I'm your host, Renee Wootton, aerospace engineer, pilot, and professional speaker. I'm here today with Felicity Furey, CEO and co-founder of We Aspire. Felicity, how are you today?
I'm awesome. It's great to be here. I'm excited to jump into this juicy conversation with you, Renee.
Absolutely, me too. And I am calling from Burragum lands today. I'm up in Queensland on the Djerriwarrh country and nation. I am also really excited to get into today's topic. It is a bit of a juicy one, actually, a bit of a personal topic as well. Choosing your life partner and the importance of that and what it plays out like in your career. Felicity, you and Michael are both co-founding your business, We Aspire. It's an incredible business about leadership, and you've both been working together and hustling together for quite a long time. Can you tell us a little bit about when you met and how you ended up where you are today?
Oh, so good, Renee. I'm curious to see what comes out in this discussion around
you and me both.
Work. And yeah, I think it's such an important topic. And for me, I remember distinctly going, I'll just go back a sec. I went to this conference in my early 20s, and there were these two incredible women that got up and they talked about their career journey, and they said, choosing your partner is the most important career move you can make. And it was two different speeches at the same conference. And I thought, that's weird. Like, why would they give that about career advice? I was so confused. And it's been really surprising to see how much of an impact that can have on my career and my thinking. And I think, what even can be possible if you've got that supportive partner, it really opens up opportunities. So yeah, it was, I had a bit of a crazy list of what I was looking for in a partner. And a big part of that was that they would help me put on my big girl panties and go be the leader that I have the potential to be. And sometimes when I was dating people, I had someone tell me I was intimidating. Okay, fair enough. And they weren't really, enlivening me and supporting me and having me be the best that it can be. And I think it can be a challenging conversation and a tricky dynamic, particularly if you're someone who sees themselves as someone who is a leader and wants to achieve things, because it can, impact the ego of the other person that you're with. And certainly Michael and I have had conversations around that of wanting to be a leader, and how do you both be leaders in your relationship as well and both strive and achieve goals. So to answer your question, Renee, we met at a leadership training program, which is quite funny. And now that
you did.
So yeah, we met there. We had a mutual friend who'd been telling me about Michael, and she had a party that night, and we got chatting at the party. And yeah, within 20 minutes, I knew he was my person. So I'm very grateful to have met him, and I think I was really clear about what I wanted in a partner, particularly around that support piece. And yeah, we actually yesterday was the day that we met. We're trying to work out, I think it's 11 years or 12 years. Neither of us could remember, but we'll go with 12 years. We've been together about 12 years. And I think actually We Aspire did really start from the conversations we were having around what's our legacy, what impact do we both want to have on the world. And Michael, similar to me, in his 20s, he actually started a finance renewables company, which helped get renewable energy in developing countries. Myself, started a charity in my 20s around getting diversity into engineering, particularly focused on school kids and regional students and helping them come through the engineering profession. So we had those similarities. And I think us realizing, okay, what's next in our journey? What impact do we want to have is where we started that conversation to create We Aspire. And yeah, 4 years later, after actually about 4.5 years later from that conversation, we're making that a reality by building this company and helping other people be leaders too.
I love that. What a beautiful story. And while you're at it, you've also had two beautiful children and navigating parenthood together. So
yes,
standout couple in my eyes. I, have spoken to you for years now, Felicity, about the way you've navigated everything together. And it's really, really nice to see that, two people, if they put their minds together, have shared values, can really succeed and really prosper together. So that's been beautiful.
Oh, thanks, Renee. Yeah, I think that the values piece is really important. While we've grown and changed so much over that, decade plus, it's, we both have that desire to make an impact. We both want to learn. There's a lot of similar things that set that foundation for wherever our relationship can go. How about you, Renee? Is that something that you'd thought about in terms of your career, about picking your partner and the impacts and importance that it could have on someone's career? Has that been front of mind for you?
It hasn't been front of mind until I met probably Alex, my fiance. I never really thought about, me being successful in my career as me choosing the right partner. And, if I reflect on my relationships throughout my 20s, I can see now that had I not thought about the broader impact of that in my decision to kind of, get married and share a life with Alex, that it would have had and did have, to be quite frank with you, detrimental impacts on my health, on my mindset, on my mental health. And so I'm incredibly grateful to have been really clear as I kind of move through relationships, actually understanding myself better, understanding my boundaries, and then really reflecting on what sort of person do I want, which kind of landed me in a very similar position to you. When you found Michael, you had that list of what you were looking for. And I think it took me most of my 20s to kind of understand that I needed a list and to be really clear on my boundaries and make sure that the person that I'm planning to set up my life with is absolutely in alignment with that, supports me, fosters, that shared vision and direction for our life, which, I think, in your early 20s, you're just trying to be loved, you're just trying to find love. And then, as you kind of move through relationships, if you're lucky enough to, start out early and have found that person off the bat, then that's so epic. And that really will just have that accumulative effect on, getting you where you want to be and helping you build that life that you want. But also I have no regrets in that the things that I've learned throughout my 20s have enabled me to now be in a position in my early 30s where I'm ready to go. I can see my whole life ahead of me now, and I love the direction that it's going. So, what do you think about that? Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I think it's really important to be really clear about what you want. And for me, having someone who makes sure, I'll just say, like, I'm just going to call it putting my big girl panties on, or listening to me as a leader would be that, or like, seeing me and my potential. And I feel like it's a blessing and it's a curse. I love that quote, hard choices, easy life, easy choices, hard life. If you're making easy choices about your relationship, like, it's just easier to be in this relationship and not have those tricky conversations or be authentically who I am or share what I want. Actually, that's going to be pretty hard. It is hard having conversations with Michael around what do I want? What are my expectations? Things that are acceptable or not acceptable, standing up for things. But that's really important to both of us in our relationship. So yeah, it's not always easy going. I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but to go, what, this is not okay for me for this to happen, and have that conversation about it. And that's hard to have those conversations, but it certainly makes things much easier down the track. I think one thing that's been really tricky for us to navigate has been that we're both quite strong, independent people. And I remember a coach saying to us, you guys are going to have to figure out how to play as a team. And we're a bit like, whatever, like, we're fine. We're doing great. And particularly as we have had children, that's been a really big part of the dynamic as well, of how do we play that role, as teams, particularly when, like, even as an example, this weekend, Michael went off and went to a retreat, and having that time separately by ourselves is really important. Even though we do have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, making a priority for that time is really important. So, sometimes the logistics look a bit interesting. Like we both drove down to Brisbane from the Sunshine Coast, and then he dropped me off at my mum's, and I hung out with my mum for the week for the couple of nights, and then he went off to the retreat, and then he came back, and I realized it's actually like this 2-hour extra drive for him to have done that. And he said, but we're a team, we got to play as a team. So I think having that front of mind has been really helpful, and really discussing, okay, what are the opportunities around, I want to be in this location for my career. I want to be here for my career. And there's been times throughout our relationship where we've been married and I lived in Melbourne and he lived in Sydney for a period of time, or living different states or whatever. Like there's no set way it has to look. It's all a conversation. So it could be something small like, hey, on this weekend, I want to record our podcast and Michael wants to go to this retreat. How do we fit that kind of puzzle together to make it all work? So I think bringing the mindset of team to it has been really powerful. Is that something you're currently living in Toowoomba? It's not Sydney, where you were previously. So I'm sure that's played a role in your relationship too, Renee.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was kind of a conversation early on between Alex and I. Alex absolutely supported me to stay in Sydney while he had to make the move up to Toowoomba. The year before that, we had been commuting for our relationship while he lived in Nowra. I lived in Sydney City. It's been an ongoing conversation. And because we spent that year apart, I was like, I don't really want to spend another year apart. I think it would be really nice to be under the same roof most of the week, each week, rather than just seeing each other for a day and then having to fly in, fly out. And it's, it added a bit more complexity to a weekend where you're supposed to be resting and recuperating. So now we just go all hard out Monday to Friday with a commute down to Sydney, which is also very exhausting. But yeah, that was a conversation very early on to say, Alex supports me to stay. It was really kind of my choice around how I wanted to navigate that, which was incredible to have that support. And we've even talked about, the future and what that's going to look like. I've got an opportunity to go to the US later this year. Next year, Alex will likely be going to the US for his work. So just how you navigate, knowing that those periods of time are going to be coming up, how do you support each other to make sure that we can truly unlock the best experience for both of us while we're away, while still being committed and really working towards, building our lives together. But I'm probably more curious to explore where things don't go well when you don't find that right partner. I think, if I reflect on my own experience, it's such an impactful thing to be able to truly show up for yourself and ask for what you need and keep having those conversations. So really good communication to say, this is who I am, this is what I need, how are we going to navigate this together, and coming back to that being that team player. But if you don't have that, then what are the implications? The implications are that you will probably turn up quite stressed, or you've got more emotional baggage to kind of manage, or you can't be your authentic self, which really means that if you're playing it low in your personal life, you're potentially going to play it low in your professional life as well. And having a lack of, confidence to ask for what you need and to communicate clearly will really lead to more and more instances where you'll allow that to probably, flow into your professional life. So I think if I was to give any advice right now, because this podcast is here for our young leaders, our emerging leaders, the way you show up in your relationship should be the same way that you show up in your work. So backing yourself, really knowing who you are and what you want, communicating really well to find those points of comparison or compromise, I should say. And trying to reduce your stress as much as possible. We've talked about in other podcasts where having a mentor is phenomenal because it can help you offload emotional burden at work, and it can help you really work through your mindset or your way of thinking to resolve issues that you find in the workplace. So how do you do that in your personal life as well? I remember early on in my 20s being in relationships where things were up and down, and that meant that my emotional state was up and down. I was trying to navigate being highly stressed from my personal life and turning up at work and being my best self. And it's incredibly challenging to do that. And at times I didn't do it. I would probably be sitting at my desk at work crying and trying to hide that whilst pretending to do work and just like kind of falling apart a little bit. And it's awful to be in those positions. So I think out of this episode, we really want to encourage you to sit back, reflect, have a think about, is your life going in the right direction? And if it's not, what conversations do you need to start having with your partner to make sure that you're both moving in that same direction? And if you're not, then what's the compromise? Is it a temporary living in different locations, or is it taking some time apart in whatever form that needs to be to unlock your career? Because if you're committed to a life together, a short period apart or a short compromise might be the thing that you need to both be really happy and thrive and survive in your careers as well. What do you think, Felicity?
Yeah, I think ultimately it comes down to being authentic with yourself first about what do you want and what is really important to you. Like really, not just like, oh, that'd be nice, or like, oh, I'd like that, or oh, one day maybe. It's like, no kidding, what are you committed to and what's important to you? Because if you're not clear for yourself, then you can't go have that conversation with your partner. And, I've had some really tricky relationships as well in the past, like even like some relationships you could, like when I was very young, you could say even in the abusive space as well. So I've had some very, very challenging situations where it meant that I had to withdraw from certain things in my career working life because I was having some of those challenges at home, and it can be absolutely destroying and like, what's the word? I say soul destroying. I don't know if that's the right word, but super destructive to your sense of self and that self-worth. So also didn't have very good role models, I think, around me, not in my family, but just for certain friendship groups or some colleagues as well around how they treated their partners. So I think as a young person, it was hard for me to know what's right in a relationship and what is that, those role models weren't, I think, very positive for me. So it took me a while, like in my 20s, to figure out, who am I? What do I want? And what's my life about? So I think getting clear for that for me myself then had me see, okay, I need a relationship that's a match for that. And I had other things on my list that I wanted from my partner.
Yeah, can we hear about this list?
I had on there someone who had done triathlons at the time. So I thought, okay, someone who's done some kind of sport would be great. Michael had run a marathon, so I was like, tick. And it's funny, like looking back on that one, that was more around like, I love adventure in the outdoors. And so that was really aligned in that sports perspective. Or someone who'd want to spend their time, being, exercising and doing those things. So that was great. And this one was really out there, which I was like, no one's ever going to have this, but it would be great if someone had started a charity, because I often had people in my workplace who'd said things like, why are you wasting all your time volunteering? Like, why are you spending all that time doing stuff and not getting paid? Like, that doesn't make sense. And so I felt like often people didn't get why I would do that. So I felt if someone started their own charity, then they would understand why I would do those things and I wouldn't have to explain it. So turns out Michael started a global charity. In his 20s, 3 years earlier than I had. So that was really cool to see that he'd done that. So the other one was, not taking my shit, which is
very important. That one's probably the most important.
I think that's the most important one. And then the last one had done a bunch of personal development on themselves. So actually taking that time to go work on themselves. And so, Michael had done those programs, which I had done. So we've done some training through Landmark Education, now Landmark Worldwide, which really helped you understand who authentically you are, what's important to you, and what could be possible. So he'd done a bunch of those programs, and so had I. So that really helped with our communication, and I think setting that tone or that standard of who we are and what's important to us, and was a really great shortcut to be able to communicate with each other around what was important to us. So I think having those kinds of foundations where someone might have something in common, where it is like a perspective or way of thinking, or maybe it's not saying everyone needs to do personal development or it's Tony Robbins or whatever your flavor is, having that as a foundation, I think really enabled us to have great communication. And I think fast-tracked our relationship would be the word. So I thought if I had like 2 of those 4 things on that list, that would be amazing. And literally being with Michael has had me go, wow, there's so much more that could be possible for my life that I didn't expect as a result of finding someone who was even like remotely close to those top 4 things. Did you have a list, Renee? I want to know if you had one now.
I absolutely had a list.
Oh, you got to tell me. I'm putting you on the spot now. What's on your list? Tell me.
I might even just refer to the things that really made me go, yes, Alex is my person. So I still remember it was like one of our second or third dates, and I got in the car with him and he had a podcast on, and it was learning like different methodologies to study and learn quickly. And it was in that moment that I was like, oh my God. I was like, I'm done. For me, continuous learning and making sure that you're curious is such an important thing, because I suppose, in the past, whether it's relationships or just people that I've worked with or known, having a closed off mindset and being really firm on a way of thinking or, a perception of others was a huge detractor for me. And that's from many experiences throughout my life where I've either been bullied in school because I wasn't in the cool group, or, I found that as I grew up, people were really cliquey and not willing to explore and learn and meet other people. So for me, from that angle around just being curious and not placing judgment on others is really important. And then I'm a continuous learner. I love learning. I love, meeting new people, and I'm just really curious about the things that I'm passionate about. So that for me, like seeing Alex have that same mentality around being open to learning, getting curious, spending his spare time on the things that will help him go further was hugely attractive to me, because there's not many people out there that I had ever dated before that had that mindset and were really proactive in that space. So that to me was incredible. I had inspiring on my list as well. A comment you made earlier about being, I guess, intimidating was a theme that came up quite often for me when I dated as well. I would walk in the room and like within 20 seconds, I could figure out if this person found me intimidating or not, their body language, the way they spoke to me. And it was generally after I would say, these are some of the things that I've done. People were like, oh, wow. Okay, well, wow, like, aren't you amazing? Or like, I don't know, it would be just like something that, you didn't feel like an equal in the room.
Yeah. They go like, oh, well, what have I done with my life? And you're like, whoa, man, like, I was just like, you asked me, I told you.
Exactly. Absolutely. So like, there's this like, mentality about making it about themselves, and maybe feeling unworthy, whatever it might be. But that was a huge detractor for me. Like as soon as that imbalance became apparent, I was like, I'm out of here. Like, I want to feel like an equal in my relationship. So and that was something else when I met Alex. It was so easy to speak to him. He was so passionate about what he was achieving in his life, and he respected and supported all of the things that I was doing from day one, which was hugely important for me. What else? I think that communication is key, and something that I have been really upfront and probably pushed the boundaries a little bit with him. So I'm like incredibly transparent and, able to kind of share exactly what's going on in my life and what I need from the relationship and what my expectations were. I remember asking up front when we first started dating, like, what's your vision for your life? Like, what do you see around you when you're 50 years old? And I think what's beautiful is like we've been able to have those conversations very early on and imagine a life, and then think about, well, where are we today and what do we need to get to be able to unlock that at 50? So I think just being able to have such transparent conversations has been really comforting, and means that I'm confident that I can build a future with this person because we're able to communicate. We are on the same path. And it's just a really exciting notion to go, great, these are the things that are coming up for us. Like, are you in or are you out? And finally, probably aviation. It sounds silly, but
why not?
I love aviation. I had on my list. So there's two elements to this. I had on my list, it's probably going to be a pilot or an engineer. And the reason I say that is because I think like my whole training, my whole education has been built around someone like, thinking highly pragmatically and logically. And I've always found that when I meet with people that aren't in those sorts of industries or in those sorts of roles, I lose my patience probably too quickly. And I found people kind of like told stories and just went on all these tangents that I was like, it's wasting time. Like, or I'm like, how did you end up there? Like, this is, this for me is like the natural way of thinking about things. So it sounds ridiculous, but I found that when I was in the presence of people that had similar training or had a similar mindset, it was just way easier to communicate. And it's really funny because when I sat down with Alex and we first started dating, I noticed his same like level of impatience around things, and like he's very pragmatic and kind of thinks about things logically the same way as I do. And I was just like, oh, thank God. Like I love it because you just kind of get straight to the point. We're able to like work through things quickly. And when I go to him to ask for support around like, hey, I've got this challenge, like I don't really know what to do or where to go, he probably reflects a very similar story or solution to what I would probably give someone. And I find that incredibly comforting because I trust his judgment and am able to talk to him about stuff. So like the mindset thing and the pragmatism and like the mindset is incredibly amazing. But then also he's so passionate about the stuff that I'm passionate about. So it's so weird, but like all of these things when we met just all lined up. And for me, I was like, it's a no-brainer. Like it's done. This is my person.
So good. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. I can see why we get along now as well, Renee. We talk about lifelong learning, curious, I feel like inspiring.
Absolutely.
I'm an engineer, so maybe missed opportunity here, Renee. Look at us.
Well, that's the thing, right? I actually think that when I think about all of my beautiful friendships and the people that mean the most to me in that circle, they are incredibly inspiring people. And, the advice that we give today really can actually be applied to your friendships as well. How do you build a beautiful, positive and exciting life? It's because you're spending it with people that are there to take like advantage of life and are excited by life and want to give back and run charities and fulfill people and lift them up. And it's this ongoing and continuous effect, a cumulative effect of positivity, to be honest, which means that when you have those down periods, you've got somebody that's like, hey, you've got this, like you've got the mindset, you know what steps to take, you can get through this period. And they, all of us are without those opportunities or those moments in life where things don't go well. So to bounce ideas off of you, Felicity, or off of Alex really helps us get back on track quicker. And that is the impact right there of having the right people in your life and having the right partner by your side.
Totally. Yeah. Environment's huge, and really you're bang on there. It's your partner is someone that you spend so much time with, and they're a huge part of your environment. And I'm fully on board with that quote. You're the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, and your partner is, arguably the one you spend the most time with. So it's really important, I think, to get that foundation right. And I feel like, Renee, you've alluded to another episode, which I definitely think we should jump on the podcast and talk about, which is your friends and how do you pick them. So today we've been talking all about how do you pick your partner. This has been our perspective. We'd love to know what's on your list. How would you pick your partner? We are not dating experts. We cannot give relationship advice. This has just been our experience, but we hope that it has inspired you or even got you thinking about, have you got the right people in your corner and around you in your environment every single day? Thanks so much, Renee. Always insightful, and we'll see you all in the next episode.
See you in the next episode. Thanks, Felicity.